Hello, everybody. This is Teen Title Talk with Erin.
And Courtney.
This is the podcast
where two librarians discuss two YA books every 2 weeks.
Today, we'll be talking about the books Vinyl Underground by Rob Rufus. And what did you read, Court?
Stone River Crossing by Tingle.
Awesome. But before we do that, we have to dip into the Jar of Teen Angst. Thank you, Priscilla. You're our very best listener for sending in questions.
I know. She's prolific with the questions.
Yeah, this is a great one. Would you like your crush now if you met him? Personality-wise, not age.
Well, that's sort of a interesting question. Like, I don't like that he's 35 or whatever. I don't know. I don't know if I would like him anymore because I don't know him anymore.
So we're talking about like his personality now versus then?
I don't know. Well,
it could be taken either way.
I was taking it as like, how's the person now? But maybe Priscilla means like celebrity crush.
I think she was saying like
real life crush.
Real life crush. If you met that person now, would you like them just the way they were? Not age wise, but just the way they were. Would you still have a crush, or did your whole viewpoint on people change?
I think my view has changed.
Okay. So tell me what the crush was like then.
Although, no, you know what? He was funny. I think
funny is always a win.
Yeah, he was funny. He was smart. He was kind of like, he cared and got good grades, but like...
Still cool?
He was still cool. Yeah, I'd probably still like him.
Okay, gotcha. Well, that was easy.
Yeah.
So, yeah, mine I would, because I was thinking of Jason, who I'm married to.
That's very convenient.
He was my crush. He also was smart and funny. He's so funny when he makes like certain faces. He would just make certain faces to make me laugh, just like scrunching his face up into these impossible contortions. It would make me laugh so hard. He's a little bit like he wouldn't be. Yeah, he wasn't.
Does he still do that?
Good.
Or
yeah.
has life just
no.
That's good. It hasn't worn him down.
Oh, he sometimes when he thinks of a joke, but it's more like on the range of dad jokes now, right?
Oh, well.
But he'll like look to see if it's funny. He'll be like, he really likes to be funny.
Oh, that's nice.
And then, what else? Yeah, he wasn't like too good. We'd go steal signs together and stuff. He wouldn't be too much of a square.
Be with someone who was too good.
Too much of a square.
You were too bad.
I know. I wonder if he would still like me.
You were just... He's like, actually, you know what? Now that I think of it now.
All right. Her next question is, if your 16-year-old self could give advice to your 34-year-old self, what would it be? Or in my case, 37, since I'm old compared to you.
You're 37?
Yes.
Wow. I would have thought that was really old when I was like 16. I thought 35 was old.
Yeah.
16.
Yeah, it is.
You don't seem old to me.
Thanks.
Yeah.
You don't seem old to me, but we are old. Any teen who listens to us
like,
knows.
Gosh, those are old people.
They're like these old people.
Yeah, that's true. What would my 16-year-old self say? Oh, my 16-year-old self would be horrified by my self-care. I'm sure. I'm sure 16-year-old Courtney would be like, can't you shave your legs more often? Or
like, what's with your hair?
Not like doing moisturizer every day, huh?
Well, so she would be critical of you mostly.
Probably.
Instead of giving you some
No, because I think what has happened as I've grown up is like some things, like I understand that I have priority. Like,
you got to make those priorities.
You have to choose what the priorities are, and those just are not my priorities.
Yep. I'm with you.
So, and I'm okay with it now.
Some things got to let go so you can make sure that the children are off to school on time. I slammed Tucker's fingers in the door yesterday, so that was good. When we were in a hurry. It was brutal, man. Everything
Did anything bad happen to them? Or
they're okay. They were just bruised, but we stopped. We had to get the ice pack.
Oh, my gosh.
You know, like.
And you were in a hurry.
Right. If I had not been in such a hurry.
I know how it goes.
That was a tangent, but what I'm saying is it's good to know that the legs are fine the way they are and everything else can just
get done. I'm not worried.
anymore about that stuff. But my 16-year-old self probably was thinking, like, I would have had my act together by now.
Oh.
And I feel like I do.
Yeah, you
just
do.
in a different way than I thought
Absolutely.
I would.
She's
Fine.
like, you'll be moisturizing every day by the time you're 34. You'll have a total face routine.
Yep.
Mine would have been so like, no, mine would have been more like playing the Journey songs. You got to believe in something. I feel like more jaded now. So I feel like my 16-year-old self sometimes does pipe up. It's like, got to get that little bit of magic back. Do you ever feel like that?
Your 16-year-old self thinks you're like an old fart.
I think
and is
so.
like, you got to just
believe in something a little bit more. Where's your passion? Like when I'm writing a book, sometimes I'm in revision and I'm being so analytical about it. And I'm like, where's that like fiery impulse that...
But that's what made you start the book, I imagine.
Well, yes, that's true. But it does fade.
Yeah, but that's where the work.
That's true. And it wouldn't come to fruition if there wasn't that analytical part
you have
also.
To make that decision to keep going.
So I almost need to just split it up. So I do have that like, woo, crazy discovery stage. There's all the magic. And then get down to the actual work of making it coherent for other beings. But my 16-year-old self would be like, no, just got to feel it. Listen to the muse.
Oh, yeah.
And then I'd like light some candles and put on some incense.
You're
some
so
music
cool.
really loud.
Oh, it's so cool.
Not anymore.
I had a lava lamp.
That's awesome. I think I had a lava lamp. I was not cool though. Remember, I had like a huge wizard poster. That's cool though, right? Your face told me no right then.
But I had a wizard candle. It was like a candle in the shape of a wizard.
Awesome. I had a fairy candle like that.
I never
Do you still have it? I have it.
No, it melted in like a...
Wait, you never burnt it? It just melted in the sun or something? That's awful,
It was
Courtney.
the saddest thing. I was like, I was one of those people who would like buy really pretty stationery and then never use it.
Yeah.
I had all these things that I would just never use.
Just beautiful things around you.
Yeah. And then one day I found the wizard like melted onto like a jewelry box or something. And I was like, ugh. It had been in the sun in the window or something.
That's awful.
That was such
sorry.
a disappointment.
Yeah, that is disappointing.
Oh, well.
All right. Well, thank you for those wonderful questions, Priscilla. If anybody else has questions out there, please put them in our jar of teen angst. Or if you want to tell us your stories, we would love to hear those too. What would your 16-year-old self give? What advice would your 16-year-old self give you today?
Right.
And would you like your crush now if you met him? Or have your taste totally changed?
Or her.
Sorry. Yeah, I totally.
Or, yeah. Could be anybody.
All right. Well, that was awesome. Let's move on to books. Courtney, you read Stone River Crossing. What was it about?
Stone River Crossing. It takes place in 1808 Mississippi, which is, like 30 years or so before the Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
It starts off with Martha Tom, who is a young teen who belongs to the Choctaw Nation.
Okay.
And that the village she lives in is literally across the river from a plantation.
Okay.
And so one day she crosses the river against her mother's wishes because she's looking for blackberries for her mother, but she had picked all the ones on this side of the river.
Okay.
So she's looking for more blackberries. She stumbles upon this plantation and the people who live there. And she kind of ends up inserting herself into the life of Lil Mo, who is a teen who is enslaved on the plantation.
Okay.
And so, she's like, you can just cross the river with me. She knows this like secret river crossing, which is the Stone River Crossing.
Right.
And it's all these like little stones just underneath the water.
Oh, okay. So you can't see them exactly.
It looks like you're walking on the water when you
That's
go
really
across.
cool.
And you just
I like that.
go across. It's cool. And so she's like, I can help you escape.
Okay.
And so that's where it all begins.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But you're not going to tell us too much.
No.
All right. And I read The Vinyl Underground, which is an awesome book that takes place in 1968. The lead character is Ronnie. He's grieving his older brother who died in the Vietnam War. And we meet Ronnie right when he is about to turn 18. So his dad is gung-ho about him enlisting, and all he wants to do is spend time figuring out his life, listening to his brother's records, and reading these old letters that his brother sent him while he was in Vietnam. But the draft, of course, is imminent. So when he meets Hannah, a half Japanese American music lover and all around activist and a bit of an outcast, a bond is formed. And between these two and a few other misfits, they start this club that they call the Vinyl Underground. And it basically is a group of teens who listen to music and figure out how to damn the man, talk about this defiance. And they try to figure out how to get Ronnie out of the draft. So that's where that gosh. I really enjoyed it. Let's talk about your book first. It sounds really neat. So when I first started reading about Stone River Crossing, it looked primarily like historical fiction, but apparently it dips its toe into the world of magical realism as well. Is that,
Completely accurate.
Okay. Can you give us an example, and how do you find the two genres play together?
Yeah, so I actually would say it's like beyond dipping a toe. It's fully immersed in magical realism. But yes, primarily historical fiction. I already talked about how it takes place in the 1800s, slave times. And where Martha Tom lives is like an independent nation, essentially. So if they take in Lil Mo's family, he like is kind of free.
Oh, okay.
Because I don't know. I guess unless they release them to the plantation, like you can't take someone away from another country or something.
Okay.
So Lil Mo finds out that his mother is the next on the list to be auctioned off. And so that's what really spurs them all to decide. So his whole family goes. But magic and mysticism, and there are miracles that happen.
Wow.
They're like so deeply interwoven into the story that it would be impossible to separate it out.
Okay.
I could pick almost any page and you would see elements of magic.
Okay.
But the most powerful is when Lil Mo's body is basically inhabited by the spirit of an evil like owl witch man.
Okay.
And the witch tries to destroy him by inserting these like seeds of doubt about the people who have helped him, about his worth, about how much, he owes to other people or whatever. And Funny Man, which means squirrel man in Choctaw.
It's F-U-N-I?
F-U-N-I, but it's pronounced funny.
Okay.
Is his like Choctaw uncle. That's what they say. So like he's sort of taken Lil Mo under his wing and he's teaching him all the way of being Choctaw.
Interesting.
And so Funny Man is the one who ends up saving him.
Okay, gotcha.
From this like possession, essentially.
Interesting.
Yeah, so I have a page that I can share. Did I say 177? I wrote it down for myself.
I'm so glad.
So right now, he and the Owl Man are together alone.
Okay.
Lil Mo and the Owl Man. And Martha Tom is watching from behind a bush, but she's so scared that she can't do anything because he's like a super evil dude. And so the old man took the fan from Lil Mo. He looked to the tree limbs above and began to sing. His voice was soft, and he moved his feet in a standing dance as he wove his spell. He waved the fan and chanted. The clouds grew darker. An owl hooted a sharp owl call, and soon several owls joined in. The old man chanted louder, till his voice blended with the wind, the owl calls, the swaying of the trees. He ducked his head and sang, but Lil Mo heard a whispering sound. The old man, though he danced and sang, was still speaking to Lil Mo.
Interesting.
Learn my song. Sing my song and learn it. When someone makes you angry, you must protect yourself. In secret, steal a strand of their hair. Wrap it around the handle of the fan. Sing the song and say their name. Sing it, Lil Mo. Martha Tom watched in horror as Lil Mo took the fan from the old man. He waved the fan, and the owl screeched, louder than before. Lightning flashed, and Martha Tom covered her ears. A clap of thunder boomed and shook the tree.
Interesting.
So there's all these kind of like moments where it's like nature and magic and all like realistic or reality, I guess, kind of meld.
Interesting.
And yeah, but I don't know. I think it's just a totally different way of observing the world.
Sure. Exactly.
And so, sort of helping Lil Mo navigate his new space.
Interesting. So you've got a lot of characters going on. One criticism I read was that the characters felt a little bit flat. Do you think that's fair, or what's your take on characters?
Yeah, I mean, in a way, I think that's true. The characters do feel a little bit flat, but I'm not sure that they're supposed to be more well-rounded.
Is there room for them to be more well-rounded, do you think? Or do you think it kind of...
I don't know. I think the novel really feels like someone is telling you a story.
Okay.
So it doesn't read like you might expect a novel to read. It felt spoken.
Okay.
So I think for that reason, the flatness of the characters
We're okay,
didn't bother me that much.
There's kind of a shield between you and them anyway.
Yeah. Because when someone is telling you a story, you get some details, like you get the important details, but you don't get all the details. We don't know why Lil Mo listens to the owl man.
Right.
Like, we don't know why, like, that's okay. We don't know what made Martha Tom disobey her mother in the first place when she crossed the river. All we know is she's looking for blackberries and felt like, man, I'll just cross that river, even though my mom says not to.
Well, yeah, I mean, I definitely do that.
We don't get a lot of inner dialogue, so we just don't know. But
it's part of the style then in some way.
I think it's a stylistic choice.
Okay.
Because we know what's important to know, that the characters are in grave danger, that they find safety, that the safety is rooted in the Choctaw way of life, and especially the words that they speak. Like, language is so important in this book. And so you learn a lot of Choctaw. And there's a whole glossary at the back. And
that's really cool.
Speak in it. Okay. Yeah. So it's just, I would say it's not necessarily a character-driven book.
Okay.
Maybe.
Yeah. And that's fair. That's fair. I don't need them all to be. It was just interesting. Did you learn anything new about this time period or about the Choctaw people while reading this? I mean, did you go in as a blank slate?
Pretty much completely.
Okay.
I knew virtually nothing of the Choctaw people before I read this, except maybe what I learned in history class about the Trail of Tears.
Interesting.
As a reminder, if you're not familiar with the Trail of Tears or don't remember it, it was like a forced relocation program that was enacted by the government through the Indian Removal Act of 1830. So essentially what the government did was force Native Americans who were living in like Southeast America to pack up, move from their ancestral homelands to the Midwest, like to Kansas.
Yep.
And it was extremely traumatizing and extremely dangerous.
Yeah. So
the Choctaw people inhabited really large areas of Alabama, Mississippi, and Louisiana. And after that forced removal, there were only like a couple thousand of them left in that area.
Okay.
And their size of their land was greatly reduced, although they did still have some.
Okay.
And I mean, many people died along the way. Parties were lost. It was horrible. But this story takes place 20 years before that, and it sort of offers a reader a chance to glimpse inside the Choctaw life that was like sort of unadulterated yet by that. Although you can see it's like the colonizing influence sort of pushing in when Funny Man goes to like a white people town to trade fox skins. And so he brings along another character, and that character is also a teenager. And he's like, wait, you're going to give them things and they're just going to give you pieces of paper in return.
That doesn't seem fair.
That's dumb.
Right.
And so you sort of see the encroachment of these ideas and stuff, but it doesn't seem to affect this story all that much, except for the fact of the plantation life, which is described in pretty great detail and is obviously horrible.
Yes.
But the Choctaw village sounds idyllic, essentially. I'm not sure that it's so wonderful and perfect as that. because it's, nothing ever is.
I'm sure it felt that way compared to everything after.
Right. But like, why shouldn't we get a view like that when we seem to get this view of perfection of, the colonizers' life all the time? So it seems like a story that's due.
Oh, interesting. So. Do you have any pet peeves or criticisms? Did you see when I was looking up this book, I saw that the publisher dropped his next book. And I know you can't criticize the book based on this, but it's kind of all around interesting and super weird, don't you think?
Yeah. So I picked this book off the new shelf of the library without even considering anything.
Well, we don't do the research till after, right?
And then it's I was like, sure, that looks good. And it got like all-star reviews.
It did.
And like
on its merits,
everything.
It did
so
great.
I was like, oh, that sounds like a great choice. Then I read up on Tim Tingle a little bit, and just recently he's come under fire for some Joe Biden-y creepiness.
Yeah, but I mean, yes, it's not great.
No. So, I mean, he denies that he ever acted inappropriately.
Oh, did he? Okay.
Yes. It's obvious he was not behaving professionally.
Right.
He was at a conference. There were two female booksellers who say he like ruffled their hair and touched their knees and their hands.
A little too touchy.
Creepy.
Yeah.
I'm still sort of surprised the book was totally pulled.
Right. That's interesting. I think they did. It said that they mutually, or he said something like they mutually parted ways.
They gave him back the rights to his book. He can find another publisher, I imagine.
Sure. Right.
And maybe he will.
And just like put it in his notes not to just be
don't be a creep.
Wandering hands around on people would be good to note for some social skills.
Yeah, you can't just be like patronizing and creepy and not expect repercussions. I don't want my hair
ruffled.
So I don't
ruffle people's hair either, except like Tucker's hair I might ruffle. I have never ruffled an adult human's hair.
It's very strange. I mean, there are people who are like arm touchers.
That's
like,
true.
Hey,
we have, or close talkers too.
Yeah, that's different though, because that's not like patronizing. Like, ooh, can't wait till my little book is in your books. Or I don't know what he was doing. It's creepy, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't know. Who knows?
We don't know the conversation they had.
We don't.
I think it's not someday there anymore.
He'll probably, because he's a very well-known author.
Yeah.
He's an Own Voices author.
Yes.
So, I mean, I don't know. I think he'll probably find somebody else to publish his book.
I think so.
So I don't think he's any really worse off than he ever was.
I know, but it is like that.
But it's a bummer.
Can't be easy for him to have to do the next steps. I don't know.
Yeah, that's true.
I don't feel that bad.
Just learn.
Like, just figure it out. Like,
yeah, you can do it.
You gotta. That's not a hard one to learn.
No, don't touch other people's heads. Done. And as far as pet peeves of the book, I think I really was bothered at first. It seemed like to oversimplify some extremely complicated issues, like
it's grappling a lot,
slavery and racism and these economic systems that uphold slavery. And it's also got friendship, and there's a love story that runs through the whole thing between Lil Mo and Martha Tom. And I don't know. I was like, the style just seemed so just like, then I don't know. It seems very like upfront, I guess.
Interesting.
And that annoyed me at first. But then the more I was into it and the more I imagined it as this sort of practice in oral storytelling, I was like, I get it now. I would be so happy to hear this song by Fire.
Interesting. Okay. Award season is coming up. Do you think it's got a lot of stars. Do you think it will be considered for an award? Like, would you place it up there for like a Newbery or something?
I would definitely, like, I was considering, I know someone on the, I think it's more middle grade.
Yeah, but Newbery is middle grade.
Yes. So, what's the Great Stoneface? I know someone on the Great Stoneface committee, and I was like, I'm going to recommend that book because I think it's good.
Because that's a New Hampshire award for those listeners.
Yes, a New Hampshire award. So I don't know. Like, I think it's definitely worth considering it on its own merit for sure.
Yeah.
Would Tim Tingle be like blacklisted because of his recent allegations? I don't
think
know.
well, technically, I don't know if you can base it on the author in any shape. You can only base it on the work, I think, technically. But I don't know how technically it gets.
I don't know, but I think it's very good. And I definitely think it's worth reading.
Okay.
And I think we don't have a lot of stories that are like this. Like when I went to look for read-alikes, it was hard to find them.
Right.
Because it just seems so different.
Okay. That does, to me, that sounds original, a period of time that hasn't been, discussed before.
Yes.
It sounds stylistically, you liked it, but it wasn't necessarily like really character driven. So they'll be looking at different elements to make the story that make the story really shine and come to life.
It would be such a great read aloud. Like such a great read aloud.
Okay. In schools and stuff,
yeah.
you think? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Alrighty. So that's Stone River Crossing by Tim Tingle. Sounds like a really interesting book.
Yeah. Recommend, and it's a quick read.
Cool.
All right. So let's talk about you now.
Yes. The Vinyl Underground by Rob Rufus.
So
Thank you to Netgalley, I should say, for letting me see an advanced reader copy of this because it doesn't come out till March 3rd.
Oh, yeah. I never said that about my book last week, but ditto. Thanks, Netgalley.
We're getting that up.
Yeah. So you also read historical fiction.
Yeah.
It is more recent, which focuses on the Vietnam War and like resistance to the war. Did you feel like it felt sincere to the characters and their experiences, or did it just feel like the author had like an axe to grind? Maybe both.
Yeah, no, it definitely felt specific to the Vietnam War. I didn't sense any agenda, really. The focus of the book is really tight on grief, the draft, and segregation, but it's through the viewpoint of Ronnie. He's super easy to sympathize with. And he's also a well-rounded character. He's a character who you just really see his life. And he's a wrestler, and he loves his brother. He loves music. So there's all these different facets of him and what he does in the world. And you see these little glimpses come through of racism and the news and social dynamics at school, especially when he becomes friends with Hannah, and how it plays out. But it's focused on Ronnie. And then there's these glimpses of these different things that are intersecting into his life. Mm-hmm. So it felt very authentic to me.
Cool.
It didn't feel didactic in any way. Like the author was like, I'm going to talk about politics now.
Right. Like not like trying to teach you a history lesson.
Not really. No.
That's good. I think. But it does sound like there's a lot of stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like it's sort of an exploration of a space where like desegregation and the draft and the onset of adulthood and racism intersect. Were all the components woven well? Is there anything you wish had been given more attention?
No, I think the balance was magical. I think part of what made it work so well was that, like I said, it was a personal story. Each of those just kind of it wasn't rushed. And it wasn't like a lot of time was spent on each of them. There were just little glimpses here and there of each big issue. So it seems like
sort of how we live.
Exactly.
You live your life.
Well, you're living your life.
Other stuff is just going on.
And then you'll hear the news and it'll make you think of something, or there's a big upcoming event, and in this case, enlistment. Mm-hmm. So obviously that's in the forefront.
Did they go to schools to do that?
So in this one, they'll they would have, what was it? I don't remember, but you could enlist before you were 18 and get like a bonus. And so recruiter would like come, or even they'd send an alumni of the school or something that already had some pull there to go and speak about it. And you see their reaction as the like kids who are like, damn the man. And it becomes very interesting.
Interesting. So, cool. Reading the synopsis, it kind of felt familiar to me. And I realized it kind of sounds like an 80s teen movie where like four unlikely outcast friends hatch a wild plan to save one of their like buddies.
Yes.
Does it have that kind of like 80s movie earnestness to it that I think keeps like the Goonies or the Breakfast Club in the cultural conversation. Like I think we're still talking about them.
Sure.
Because there's that like sense of sincerity almost.
Oh, yeah.
To the experience of just like being a teenager.
Yes. Yeah, basically I had the exact same feeling. I thought this really feels familiar. And then I was trying to tackle like, why does it feel so familiar? What is so familiar about it? So I kind of narrowed in on, I think whenever you have 4 or more people, whoever, like in the Breakfast Club, that are just getting to know each other, the story has to tackle them learning about each other. And that's a really vulnerable moment where there's these people coming together and there's a lot of sharing happening, sharing of backstories and feelings and ideas. And it really made me think of Breakfast Club or Dead Poets Society. You know, when they get together, they like read the poetry in the cave. And there's this weird vulnerability. And you're kind of like these guys. There were these scenes where they would listen to music and there was kind of almost a ritual to picking the music. And then they talk about avoiding the man. They talk about what's going on in the world. They talk about defiance and activism. And Ronnie would read these letters from his brother. Half of my brain was like, wow, this is so emo, teen angst. And then the other half was like, this is so realistic. I love it. I want more. I want more. I want more.
Did they know each other in the beginning of the book?
A couple of them did. And then like Hannah comes. They didn't know her, but the other friend is friends with Hannah. And then they all come together as a group. So
is it like at a record store?
No, they all bring their records to Hannah's house. Listen.
Oh, cool.
And you know, it's got this like you've got the soundtrack to it because you know what they're playing, and that kind of brings the world to life.
Oh, that
and
would
then
be like a great like add-on.
A soundtrack. I bet that. I mean, it might be out there. The soundtrack to Vinyl Underground. But it kind of also serves the purpose of drowning out their conversation from adult ears, that kind of thing too.
Oh yeah, I really want to know what their plan is now.
Oh, do you want to know what their plan was?
Am I allowed to know?
Yeah. So they were what their plan is. I don't want to give too many spoilers, but it's pretty upfront what their plan is. They say it pretty quickly. Is to make him. They work at the movie theater. And their plan is to crank the sound so loud that it makes him deaf temporarily. Oh. So then there's that extra layer of vulnerability because you're like, wait, he loves music, like more than anything. So like, there's this risk, but he wants to get out of going to war for obvious reasons.
Yes.
So, yeah. So you have to read to find out what happens.
I guess so. So many things could
go wrong.
Did you find yourself drawn in right away or did you have to make yourself keep reading?
No, I was immediately drawn in. So there are a couple things that made me sit up and pay attention. I think the love of music is really deep. Like I could tell the author knew music well. And not only just talking about the different records, but they say things like the walking bass line and that kind of language. There was also a really spareness to the prose. There was a lot of dialogue. It was dialogue heavy, not a lot of setting, not a lot of lyricism. The descriptions sounded good, but they were tight. They weren't like really long and florid or anything like that. So it made it feel like it was going very fast. Just had a really nice voice to it. And then, of course, there's the ticking clock of the 18th birthday. So that part of the plot really pushes it along. So it felt like a fast read, even though it's not the lightest of subjects.
So it sounds like this is a book you can imagine talking to someone about, like, I got to tell you about this book that I read.
Yes, I really enjoyed it. And I don't know if it was just, when you find a book that fits your mood, it just totally does. And as a teen, I think I would have loved this book. Loved. So I'm excited for March. I can't wait to get it for the library and start handing it off to teens who come into the library. So that's books. What's up next is we're going to aim for, I'm just going to carry on, Courtney. We're going to aim for some titles that people are kind of predicting for the Prince Award. So I'll be reading The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Spettis.
And I will be reading The Downstairs Girl by Stacey Lee.
Awesome. We also have read a whole bunch of books this year that people have kind of been buzzing about. So I think maybe we should make predictions for what we would choose out of the ones we read.
I was noticing that some of the books we read were on those lists.
Like Lovely War's on there, The Fire and High's on there. Laura Dean keeps breaking up with me. I don't know. There's lots.
Pet is also on there.
Pet is also on there. That's right. Okay.
We'll
talk about that. Listeners, remember, if you get a chance to answer our 2 questions, those are, would you like your crush to know if you met him or her, personality-wise, not age? And if your 16-year-old self would give advice to your current day self, what would it be? Likewise, if you have any questions about reading recommendations or library life, please write to us at teentitletalk@gmail.com, and we'll read a few of our listener responses next time.
Thank you for joining us for Teen Title Talk. This podcast is brought to you by the Derry Public Library and Derry-CAM, Derry Community Access Media, empowering independent voices. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to rate and review wherever you are listening to it. Our theme was created and performed by Banded Starling. Until next time.
Bye.
Bye.